Thank you all, and welcome to the White House. I'm delighted we could have a few moments together today, and I'm anxious to get to your questions. Let's make it a dialogue instead of a monologue, all right?
Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's Live From at the Reagan Library. Remember, we do these on the first Wednesday of every month. Now, just a little quick note, we're standing pretty much in the Reagan Library's lobby at closing time, so it might get a little bit loud. You might hear change being counted, I'm not sure, but we're just gonna keep plugging away. We thought for this Live From, it might be fun to do something a little different. As you know, usually I come to you within a specific gallery or special exhibition here at the library and share some of the artifacts and stories of that gallery. But this time we wanted to just solely interact with all of you. So about a week or two ago, we went on our social media channels. We asked you to submit questions you wanted me to answer. I have them in my hands. But even if you didn't go online, we're still going to engage with you live. So if you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, simply go to that chat box, not the comment box, but the chat box. Ask your question, or even simply tell me your name and where you're watching from, because you know I love to say hello and give you shout outs. I'm going to be going to the screens multiple times throughout this podcast, so don't be shy. Again, just simply go and put in your name and where you're watching from so I can say hi or ask a question. So why don't we actually get to it, and we'll go to the first question here. Let's see here. Caroline on Instagram, and thank you again, all of you who submitted questions. It was so great. Caroline on Instagram asked what our favorite Ronald Reagan quote is. Now, that's really hard. He was president of the United States for 8 years. We have all of his speeches and video from those 8 years. We also have a lot of videos and speeches and quotes from his years as California governor. So really hard to pick just one. Of course, all the famous ones, tear down this wall, or the Challenger speech, or the Boys of Pointe du Hoc on the 40th anniversary of Normandy. But sort of thinking through what my favorite one was, or one that really resonates with me, is actually from his farewell address on January 11th, 1989. And he's sort of speaking to the American people. Now, I could read it to you, but that's boring. Why don't we actually hear from President Reagan himself?
Let me offer lesson number one about America. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. So tomorrow night in the kitchen, I hope the talking begins. And children, if your parents haven't been teaching you what it means to be an American, let them know and nail them on it. That would be a very American thing to do.
Isn't that a great quote? Isn't it still true today, and in some ways even more true today? If we all just sat around, it doesn't have to be at the dinner table, and had civil conversations, think about the things that we could accomplish together, not just in our families, our communities, our nation, and the world. Let's see the next question. Now this question I didn't attribute to a certain person because we got it quite a lot. And the question was about how the Reagan Library chooses the special exhibitions we have here at the library. If you watch these, you may know that right now we have an exhibition on the Dead Sea Scrolls, we've had an exhibition on Star Wars, on Auschwitz, on Titanic, the Vatican, FBI, World War II, so many different exhibitions. And we're always asked, how were they chosen and how did they get there? Well, we bring in special exhibitions every 6 months or so. So we'll have an exhibition for 6 months, and then we have about 6 weeks of no exhibition while we tear that one down and put the next one in, and then the next exhibition for 6 months. So almost 2 per year. We do this for a variety of reasons. If you did not know, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library Museum is the most visited presidential library in the presidential library system, and it's something we're really proud of. And that is for a variety of reasons. We here are covering the life and times of Ronald Reagan. That really helps. It also really helps that we have an Air Force One aircraft. So a lot of people come out just to walk on board an Air Force One plane. But really, one of the main driving reasons are these special exhibitions. It gives our community members a reason to come back, to see it for themselves, to bring family members or people from out of town who are visiting. It also encourages people who always say, I'll get to the Reagan Library at some time. But they really want to see our Titanic exhibition, and it's closing, so they're going to finally come up, and they see the Titanic exhibition, and then while they're here, they have to get on Air Force One, and they have to see the Oval Office, and they have to see the Berlin Wall, and they have to pay their respects to President and Mrs. Reagan, and suddenly they've seen our entire campus. So that's why we do this. What we try to do is plan out our special exhibitions about 18 to 24 months in advance. That isn't always the case. When we had our exhibition a handful of years ago on Leonardo da Vinci, we literally planned that one in about 2 months. It was pretty crazy. That's not how we like to do things here. So we try and plan out what's coming for the next 18, 24 months. For example, I know the next 3 exhibitions coming to the Reagan Library. Now, I'm not going to tell you yet. That's a surprise to come later. But it's a way to really work ahead and know our schedule. We get our exhibitions two ways. One, we rent them. The Dead Sea Scrolls exhibition, the Auschwitz exhibition, the Pompeii exhibition, Vatican Splendors, the Da Vinci one. Those are all rented from traveling touring companies. The traveling touring company collects all the artifacts, makes the design, builds a touring schedule, and I don't want to say all we have to do, but all we have to do is work with those touring companies to book them here, get the insurance, pay their fees, and bring them here and help install them. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's insurance issues. Some exhibitions like Dead Sea Scrolls come with very high security, but because we're a government location, that really helps with this. Environment, we have a very high level museum environment that really controls humidity, air pressure, lights. So that also allows us to bring in some of these really world-class traveling exhibitions. But it's not always easy. The Auschwitz exhibition, we worked on getting here for about 5 or 6 years. The Dead Sea Scrolls exhibition took about 3 years to get here, and that's another reason why you have to work so far out in advance. Other exhibitions we self-curate. Our team here at the Reagan Library, it's a curatorial team of 4, and they come up with the idea of the exhibition, find lenders who can loan items, write the story, and put the exhibition together. Star Wars was self-curated. FBI in World War II was self-curated. Titanic was self-curated. An exhibition we did on Abraham Lincoln was self-curated. Now, whether it's self-curated or one that we rent, the artifacts come in a variety of ways. Depending upon where they're coming from, usually they're trucked, sometimes they're flown in, but sometimes items of really high value, think the 8 scrolls from the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibition. Those are literally hand carried in first class on airplanes by the curators that are bringing in the items. So it's a really intricate procedure to bring in these exhibitions, but it's something that we are so proud of, to really have these world-class exhibitions, whether we've built them ourselves or rented them. We are announcing our next exhibition on September 1st. It's a self-curated exhibition. There are amazing items in it. I think you're all going to want to see it. So by the next time we do this, we'll be able to talk to you about that. So let's see, what is our next question. Historian184 on Instagram asked us who some of the candidates other than George H.W. Bush were considered to be Ronald Reagan's vice presidential candidate. Now, you may or may not know that actually his first choice, which was quite interesting, was President Gerald Ford. There was a lot of discussion about it. The two men, Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford, met many times, but ultimately they decided that it was going to look more like a co-presidency, that there could potentially be power issues. So that idea for a candidate was sort of put aside. Other people considered were Jack Kemp, the congressman from New York, Richard Lugar, the senator from Indiana, Howard Baker, the Senate Minority Leader from Tennessee, William Simon, who was the former Treasury Secretary, and also Paul Laxalt, who was not just the senator from Nevada, but was also a very close friend and close political ally to Ronald Reagan. Of course, ultimately, George H.W. Bush was chosen. The two made a really good pair, and of course, he then went on to become President of the United States. I have a lot more questions in my hands, but first we're going to go to the screen. It does look like a handful of you are submitting questions. Thank you so much. So if you know me, I got to put on my glasses to see what you've all said, so let's see. Cars Adventures is asking who's answering the questions. I'm not sure if I understand your question, but we took the questions from social media. I did the research to answer them, and then I'm answering them. Melissa, I hope that answers your question. We're being asked by our friend from Japan, well, Ronald Reagan will never be resurrected, but in terms of bringing peace and prosperity to the world, that is one of the missions, and it's actually a question we'll get to in a little bit. Here at the Reagan Foundation, our mission is to advance the legacy of President Reagan and bring his principles to the world. So that is something we are trying to do. I'm confused by that one as well. Let's see, we got Greg Watkins. I think you talked to us last time. Thanks for tuning in again. Why did he call his parents by the first name when he was young, and what book in the Bible is his favorite book? Oh, you asked great questions. I don't know if I can answer. I know the Bible is his favorite book. I don't know if I know which Bible verse or book was his favorite, but we can try and look that up for you and answer at another. We'll go into the comment section and answer that for you. Alexis is watching from San Francisco. Hello, Alexis, my daughter. Steve from Carpinteria. Hi, Steve. Thank you for joining us. Cindy Evans is watching. I think, Cindy, you watched last time too. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. Jim from Appleton, Wisconsin, you saw him in Oshkosh, Wisconsin in '84. That's super cool. It's one of the things, I've worked at the library a very long time. He was still alive when I started here, but I never had the great fortune to meet him or see him. So I'm jealous of all of you who did. Greg, thank you for doing the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's a tremendous exhibition. It's here just through September 2nd, so that's less than 4 weeks. So if you haven't seen it yet, we really highly, highly recommend you come on out. Savannah, hi from Colorado. She did not pass a test, or maybe she passed a test. I don't know what 76 means. What is my favorite gallery in the Reagan Library? That's a great question. You know, it's hard not to say the Air Force One Pavilion, to have Air Force One, but I actually think my favorite gallery is the Heroes Gallery. If you're not aware, the Heroes Gallery is a section in our exhibition where we talk about the heroes that Ronald Reagan mentioned in his State of the Union addresses for all 8 years of his presidency. He mentioned the boys at Pointe du Hoc. He talked about the Challenger disaster victims. He talked about Medal of Honor recipients. But we have since made that gallery, which still talks about all the heroes that Ronald Reagan discussed, and we've made it more current. We actually have a real steel beam from the World Trade Towers from 9/11 donated to us by the New York Fire Department. And every time I'm sort of in that gallery, it's very moving to me. So that's probably my favorite gallery. Thank you for the question. Pat Patterson, what a great president. Absolutely. He did a great job in office, bringing the country together, accomplished the Berlin Wall. And all with a sense of humor. Couldn't agree more. I don't know if you follow us on our other social platforms like Instagram and Twitter, but we every Friday post a Friday Funny with one of Ronald Reagan's jokes, and it's a really good way to get some levity going into the weekend. So I see more questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to go back to these in about another minute, so keep them coming, and I will go back to those who I did not get to. Thank you guys so much. I love this. Let's see what the next question is. Speaking of jokes, talk about good timing. On Instagram, Joaquin asked what our favorite political joke Ronald Reagan ever told. Now, that's impossible, because he told so many jokes. He started almost every speech with a joke or, sort of a humorous story. He did it to sort of, break up the room and get people more comfortable with him. He has really a disarming way about him. One of our Friday Funnies from about a month ago really made me laugh. If people want to go back and try and find it, it's about an older couple late in bed, and the wife, I think it's the wife, sends the husband out for ice cream, and he comes back with a turkey sandwich. It's really funny. Try and find it. But since the specific question was about a political joke, Ronald Reagan made a lot of jokes about the relations in the Soviet Union, trying to bring light to what was going on in the Soviet Union while he was president. So let's actually hear from the president and hear one of his favorite stories.
I'm a collector of stories that I can establish are actually told by the people of the Soviet Union among themselves. And this one has to do with the fact that in the Soviet Union, if you want to buy an automobile, there is a 10-year wait, and you have to put the money down 10 years before you get the car. So there was a young fellow there that had finally made it, and he was going through all the bureaus and agencies that he had to go through and signing all the papers, and finally got to that last agency where they put the stamp on it. And then he gave him his money, and they said, come back in 10 years and get your car. And he said, morning or afternoon. And the man that had put the stamp on says, well, wait a minute. He says, we're talking about 10 years from now. What difference does it make? He said, the plumber's coming in the morning.
Isn't that great? We joke that we have a 4 to 8 hour window for a serviceman or woman to come to our house, and that joke was about 10 years. I love that one. Going back to your questions, Kimbaloo on Instagram asked if we provide tours of our private quarters. Now, I'm going to start by explaining what the private quarters are for people who aren't aware. It's a private area here at the Reagan Library. It's not open to the public. I'm standing on the museum floor level, and the private quarters are one level up. It's the same level where the foundation offices are. It's where I work. And when you hear private quarters, you think bedroom in a residence. It is not that. It was built because when this Reagan Library opened in 1991, President and Mrs. Reagan were very healthy and very active in the Reagan Library. So it's basically office spaces for them. So that although their office was in Century City, it allowed them to come up to the Reagan Library and have a place to meet guests or have company or actually work. Like they're actually working offices. So there's an office for President Reagan. There's an office for Mrs. Reagan. Then there is a living room area where they entertained with an actual working fireplace because Mrs. Reagan was always cold and loved a roaring fire. And then a small little dining room area that seats about 50. The items in all of these offices and living room spaces include, artifacts that were gifted to President and Mrs. Reagan. There's some amazing artifacts in there that we've sometimes highlighted in our Monday Minute in the archives videos, but like my favorite object up there is an actual game board gifted to President and Mrs. Reagan for Christmas by Frank Sinatra. But there's awards they received, the 8 Christmas cards they gave out during the White House years are on display up there. Just some really remarkable items within those rooms. When they were alive, they would come up and maybe we had Lech Walesa, the President of Poland, was here, and they would use those offices to meet them privately. Today, we use those for very high-level events. So, for example, a year ago, I believe it was a year ago, we had Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch here. And the event was public, and you could buy a ticket. It was in our auditorium. But following the program, we used the private quarters to host him for a small, intimate dinner. So that's how they're used today. They are not open to the public. You are not able to tour them. The only way you can tour them is if you are a President's Circle Club member or higher. One of the benefits of being at that level of membership is actual private tours of the private quarters. So if you're interested, simply go to reaganfoundation.org and go to our Support Us section and look up President's Circle Club membership. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I'm going to go back to the screens, which means my glasses are going back on. Please keep these coming. We love it so much. Which U.S. president did Reagan most admire? Stephen, hi Stephen, thank you. I don't know if it's most admire, but I can tell you that he really valued the friendship and advice that Eisenhower gave him. In fact, when Ronald Reagan was president of the United States and he was in the Oval Office, behind his credenza was another credenza full of photographs. And every photograph on that credenza were family photos with one exception, and it was the exception of a photograph of Ronald Reagan and Eisenhower, I believe from the 70s. And that actual photo is on display in President Reagan's private quarters office. It's one of the things that's on display. Any other questions that we haven't seen yet? Ivan, the day I visit the Reagan Library, they're going to give me the VIP treatment. I hope we do too. It's our goal to give everyone a presidential experience. So I hope that I hope you do visit, and I hope when you visit, it's the experience you are looking for. Greg is asking if we sell Reagan and Mrs. Reagan's movies on DVDs at the museum store. I'm looking around at people around. Does anyone know? I think we do. Yes, I'm getting a nod. I believe that we do. So check that out. Dave, this is a great question. Is it possible to see and experience a Situation Room Control Center when visiting the library? I had the opportunity to see the conference room at the George Bush Library and found it extremely interesting. This is a really long-winded answer, and I apologize. You cannot see it on a regular tour. You can see that. So for those who don't know, we have the actual Situation Room from the White House. It was renovated, I believe, during President George W. Bush's presidency. His library wasn't open yet. They didn't know what to do with it, and we took it. That's why he knows about it from visiting the George Bush Library. It is used for student and adult leadership trainings. So your company, I'm assuming you're an adult, your company could book it out for a leadership training. Similarly, we talked about it in previous live froms, we have another area where we do adult and student leadership trainings, where we have built out replicas of the Oval Office, White House press room, and sort of a command decision center on board the USS Ronald Reagan. If you're interested, you can comment again, and then we can share information in the comment section later of how you can do that. Greg, I'm so glad you saw that. So Greg just talked about the picture with Nancy Reagan with Hulk Hogan. One of the things we do here is if someone passes away of the era of the Reagan administration, and we know that that person met President or Mrs. Reagan, when they pass away, we do something on our social media. We all know that legend Hulk Hogan just passed away, and we looked at our collection, and sure enough, there were photos of Mrs. Reagan with him, so we posted them on our socials. That's what he saw. Ronald Reagan loved all those types of people, all the different types of athletes, from wrestlers to boxers to football players to baseball players. One of my favorite pictures in the collection is him arm wrestling with Muhammad Ali. Love that one. We are going to go back to the screens in just a minute, so keep them coming, and we will go back to some of the questions you pre-submitted. I really appreciate this. Rohan on Instagram had a really interesting question. Rohan asked about all of our different high school competitions and scholarship programs. 20 some odd years ago, we launched our first one. It's called the Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program. Now, this is our most sort of small and specific scholarship program. We are in Ventura County, and this scholarship program is only available for Ventura County high school seniors. It's an essay competition. It's not very hard to fill out or do, and we have a pot of $50,000 that we give out each year that we divide amongst the top finalists that we believe sort of rise to winning the scholarship. The money goes to the college that they will be attending in the fall. But in 2011, we launched our largest scholarship program in partnership with GE, and it's called the GE Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program. This is ranked by both Forbes and US News and World Report as a top college scholarship to get. The winners of this scholarship receive $40,000 to the college of their choice. It's paid out over 4 years, $10,000 per year to pay for books, room, board, whatever it might, tuition, whatever you might need it for. To date, we've given out almost $1 million in this program. It's quite extraordinary. We get like 17,000 applicants a year for the scholarship, but don't let that scare you or your children, because someone has to win, and it could be you or someone you know. In the past year, we've also launched 2 additional scholarship programs. The GE Reagan Foundation is national. As long as you live in the United States, go ahead and apply. The other 2 are also national. We have the Ronald Reagan Debate Series. This one is high school students debating each other through a pretty long process, but it's not the debate that students are used to today. It's not the how fast can you speak kind of debate. It's more of the style of Ronald Reagan. Can you show your personality? Can you include humor? Can you tell stories? Can you have a civil debate amongst the people you're debating? And the winners of that do receive a college scholarship. And just this year, we launched our oratory scholarship program, and this one is also even has a component for students as young as middle school. And this one's a lot easier because you don't have to write your own essay and do a lot of research. The oratory one is teaching you public speaking skills, and you are actually delivering an actual address Ronald Reagan gave. So you just have to memorize his address and deliver it in your style, or maybe sort of mimicking Ronald Reagan style. And again, there are cash prizes for college scholarships in there as well. You can learn more about that, reaganfoundation.org. At the very top, there's in our header, one is education, and if you click on education, just click on the scholarship button. Addie on Instagram asked about the work of the Reagan Foundation and Institute, and if anything is done internationally. And this sort of ties back to a question we had earlier from our person watching from Japan. Now, I'm going to go into the mission of the Reagan Foundation, but to do that, you need to understand that we took our mission from Ronald Reagan himself. And it dates back to November 4th, 1991, when the Reagan Library was opening, and Ronald Reagan was delivering his opening remarks to open the Reagan Library, and this is what he said.
Like the office they commemorate, presidential libraries are living institutions. Certainly it is my hope that the Reagan Library will become a dynamic intellectual forum where scholars interpret the past and policymakers debate the future.
So we take that very seriously here. We literally live by that quote. Allowing policymakers to debate the future, researchers to debate the past. And that's why we have big public convenings here, presidential debates, bilateral summits between 2 countries, big convenings, the Reagan National Defense Forum, the Reagan National Economic Forum, speakers like we have Supreme Court Justice Amy Barrett coming, we have Ben Shapiro coming, we have Mark Levin coming. This is why we do that, to live up to what Ronald Reagan wanted his location to actually be. The official mission of the Reagan Foundation and Institute is to advance his principles. Of course, individual liberty, economic opportunity, freedom and democracy, peace through strength, and American pride. So we do that through the scholarship programs I just talked to you about, the programming I just talked to you about. But to the part of the question, do we do anything internationally? Yes, because advancing his legacy doesn't just mean, here in the walls of Simi Valley or here in the United States. It's also advancing his principles to those around the world, because nothing meant more to Ronald Reagan than promoting freedom and democracy around the world, bringing it into communism, all those different types of things. In 2011, which would have been Ronald Reagan's 100th birthday had he still been alive, we actually did 2 weeks worth of programming internationally. London, Berlin, the Czech Republic, Budapest, I think I'm forgetting one, and we continue to do that work. In fact, we are going back to London in just 2 months because on October 13th, 2025, Margaret Thatcher would have turned 100. And Ronald Reagan worked tirelessly with Margaret Thatcher, and of course also with the Pope, also with Brian Mulroney and others, to help bring an end to the Cold War, as Margaret Thatcher said to Ronald Reagan, without firing a shot. So we are actually holding events in London the week of October 13th to honor the relationship between Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. So yes, we do a lot of things internationally. Thank you for asking. We even do something annually, not open to the public, but we do something called the Henry Jackson Dialogue, where we actually bring over elected officials, senators and congressmen and women to the UK to meet with members of parliament from the United Kingdom, off the record, behind closed doors, no media, to kind of be able to help open up that dialogue between our 2 countries. So yes, thank you for asking, great question. Is there anyone else on the screen? We're gonna go back to the screen, so keep jumping them in. We love talking with you. Thank you so much. Lincoln, I love your name, Lincoln. Ronald Reagan was an amazing president. We agree. Stephanie, the Foundation and Institute. Your grandfather worked at the SDI program. That's really awesome. I don't know if you live locally, but it would have been cool had you seen our Star Wars exhibition, because it was all about the Strategic Defense Initiative. I think that's it. And we will be going to the screens one more time as I wrap this up. So if you have anything else to say, any other questions, or just want to put your name and where you're watching so I can say hello, this is your chance, because I'm going back one more time. Okay, let's finish up these questions. Let's see. Oh, this was a great one. Chris C. on Facebook asked if Ronald or Nancy Reagan had a favorite room in the White House. So I didn't know the answer, so I went to a colleague. The colleague who works here with us actually worked at the White House with President and Mrs. Reagan. And I asked her if she knew the answer, and she kind of thought for a minute, and she smiled, and she said, I don't know if they actually had a favorite room. She said, but I know that if I asked President Reagan what his favorite room in the White House was, his answer would be any room that Nancy was in. And I loved that answer, and I know my colleague was right, so that's the answer we're gonna give you. We even had a question on True Social. Thank you so much, Husker Girl. And Husker Girl asked if we have online tours of Air Force One or the Reagan Museum for those people like herself who live out of state. So we don't have an actual online tour of our whole campus. That said, these live froms that we do every single month, they're always from within another gallery. So if you went on our YouTube channel and looked at our playlists of live froms, you will literally see every single gallery in the library, including tours on board and through Air Force One, on board and through Marine One. Every gallery, we highlight the most important or interesting artifacts in those galleries. So that's a way to do it. The other way to do it is, while we were closed during COVID, we couldn't do these live, of course, because we weren't here at the Reagan Library, we weren't allowed to come in. And in May of 2020 and in June of 2020, we made 2 videos that were published during when we would normally go live. And they're pretty long, they're 20 or 30 minutes. I think this one's probably gonna be that long. And one is entirely the inside of the museum, and one is entirely the outside of the campus. So I went and searched on YouTube, and this is how I found them. I'm gonna look. If you go on YouTube, and you put Reagan Foundation as one word, so Reagan Foundation all smushed together in quotes, and then write the word and then in quotes write virtual tour, amongst the things that will come up in the search are 2 videos. One from May of 2020 and one from June of 2020, and those are the 2 that I'm referring to. Hope that helps. We are about to go to the screen for the last time, so this is your warning. But first I will answer this question if I can. So many people on Instagram ask the same question or similar question. Reaganism 80, Maxwell, JP, Joaquin, and others all asked questions about what we believe Ronald Reagan's most lasting legacy and his greatest accomplishments. So I'm sure you could ask a lot of people and they're going to give you different answers. For us, it's ending the Cold War without firing a shot, his determination to work with someone at the Soviet Union to bring an end to the Cold War, to communism, and to bring down the Berlin Wall. His passion for bringing America's pride back to the United States, and turning around our nation's defense and making our military feel honored to serve again. Because when he came in the office, sort of serving wasn't really looked upon well, or the people in the military weren't being treated right, their salary wasn't great, they didn't have the equipment they needed, and Ronald Reagan turned all of that around. For Ronald Reagan, nothing made him more proud than seeing the men and women in our military and being able to salute them and say thank you for your service. So in my opinion, those would be the things that would be really important to talk about. I can't turn my little page. I feel like there is a quote I missed, but maybe not. Let's go back to the screens one final time and we will wrap this up. Oh, hi Dave from Arizona. Thank you for these insightful forums. Thank you for watching. I so appreciate it. We have Cindy from Reno, Nevada. Greetings from Poland. That's amazing. I had the honor of going to Poland in January for the 80th anniversary of Auschwitz, and of course, liberation of Auschwitz. And of course, we had Lech Walesa here, February of, not February, a year and a half ago, to honor President Reagan and his birthday. What a remarkable man. Any metaverse projects in the Reagan Library? I don't think so. Is there any more before we? Greatest President of My Generation, thank you. And our last one, my favorite, Greg, was the Normandy speech on D-Day. It is such a beautiful speech. I believe that was written by Peggy Noonan, I think. Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, speechwriter to Ronald Reagan, and a great friend to us here at the Reagan Library and Foundation. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I know I rambled a lot on this one, but if you do watch these, you know my favorite part is actually interacting with you. And I love that I'm now seeing people's names who watch these every month. And I can't tell you how much that means to me and to all of us. We will be back the first Wednesday of September. I will be able to tell you what our next special exhibition is. Again, one more time, Dead Sea Scrolls does close on September 2nd. So if you haven't visited, now is the time. It's something you don't want to miss. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to conclude this by going back to President Reagan on the opening of the Reagan Library on November 4th, 1991.
Doors of this library are open now, and all are welcome. The judgment of history is left to you, the people. I have no fears of that, for we have done our best. And so I say, come and learn from it. My fondest hope is that Americans will travel the road extending forward from the arch of experience, never forgetting our heroic origins, never failing to seek divine guidance as we march boldly, bravely into a future limited only by our capacity to dream.